We're going to talk about Apple, some interesting things going on there. So apparently they are digitizing our driver's license and state IDs, and this is planned to be released later this year in their iOS 15 update. So far, they apparently have secured 2 states, Arizona and Georgia, to bring digital driver's licenses and states IDs to the iPhone. And next up, we have Connecticut, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Oklahoma, and Utah, but we don't have a specific timeline for that. It's kind of interesting. You know, we have everything kind of being digitized these days, and there are also privacy concerns that come along with that. So let's dive into some of those. Ben, I'm going to throw this to you to start off with. What's your thought on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is another matter of like convenience, right? And I think what's tricky here is that, you know, in a lot of instances, this is going to be used to interact with law enforcement to show your driver's license. Say, for example, if you are speeding, get a ticket or something like that. You know, Apple said that this should just be able to be a scan thing. A cop shouldn't have to, for example, take your phone back to their car. But I mean, the police are not always great about following their own rules, much less Apple's. So I'm curious because I would not trust a law enforcement officer taking my entire phone back to their car for anything writ large. But I think that's something that jumped to my mind initially with this one. Again, Apple says they should just be able to scan. But in terms of, you know, problematic interactions writ large, that is that's my first concern. But there are much, much more. Will, what have you got?
Yeah, so Apple is behind the ball here. You know, they came up with the iPhone first, but they're not the first ones to do this digital ID thing. State of Colorado, in fact, was the first one to do it. And so I had the digital ID as far back as 2 years ago. The state office here built a blockchain-based ID system itself. Talked to the guy who built it, and a pretty interesting product. The issue with it was not on the technological front. It was on people using it when you go out. So if you went to a bar or whatever, need to get ID, people were like, I don't trust that. It's not physical. So they didn't accept it. So you could use it on toll roads, or, you know, if you got pulled over by a cop for whatever reason, it was there and you could show it to them and it worked. Couldn't get adoption from the public in general. So I guess my takeaway from this story and looking at that context is that maybe because Apple is the brand behind this and they roll it out as a mass feature, they're able to get more buy-in than just like a standalone state kind of working with a standalone product here. Zach, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I think that's what it's really about, that network effect, right? Like that's how we see these decentralized technologies get a little steam, right? When everyone's at the NFT party, all of a sudden NFTs are popping. So if this is something that Apple can do in a privacy-preserving way, which that's a big if, as Ben pointed out, it's something that could be of interest. But yeah, I'll toss it down to Jen for her thoughts.
Yeah, on the privacy point, the company said that customer data is encrypted and protected against tampering and theft, and that the ID can only be viewed by the owner. But the article that Naomi shared, I think it popped up on the screen while you were introing the segment, said that privacy experts said Apple's lack of transparency about how the technology is built and what it ultimately gets out of the project is concerning. And that's interesting. I mean, I had high hopes for Apple at the beginning of this year when they were rolling out their new privacy features. And now it feels like we have story after story that make me kind of question their motives behind this. I mean, it is super convenient, and I think it's going to have a massive, large-scale adoption. But I do question the motives, and I think that it is for entrepreneurs and startups to find a more transparent way to do this and offer the convenience to people, so that, you know, the big tech giants don't you know, take our data and do who knows with it. But I'll toss it back to you, Naomi.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Jen. And if you look at security experts out there, people like Perry Metzger, people like Matt Green, they all used to be huge proponents of Apple, and now they're publicly saying, let's look for other options. And it's all because, you know, Apple was branding itself as the go-to privacy phone. It was something that you could trust, and for mass adoption, it was just such a great contribution to the privacy space. You know, what they did, people, like millions and millions and millions of people all over the world got to benefit from it. But with their rollout of all of the scanning of photos on your devices, no one trusts them anymore. So the fact that they're saying, oh, this will be held on your device, it'll be encrypted, this ID, you know, it's not going outside of your device. I don't think anyone trusts that anymore because they're so opaque about how this stuff works. And as they started to reveal details of how the photo scanning works, no one believes that that actually happens anymore. And so the fact that all these security experts that used to be, you know, big proponents of Apple are jumping ship, you know, it's just kind of it's sad to see Apple descend like that. But Ben, last words before we move on to the next story.
Also,
yeah, Zach,
nice
I'll hand
shirt,
it to you in
Ben.
just 1 second, but I think that, thank you. I think that it's on part a narrative battle, right? Like Apple announces these things, but doesn't give a lot of details about how they're going to function, and then people get worried. And then Apple then comes out and tries to set the record straight with a really technical explanation that they didn't do a good job articulating in the first place. And so that's something I need to be thinking more about, because like as more details come out, the conversation gets a lot more nuanced, but you can't just like make wholesale changes and then not give any insight into that black box aspect, Naomi, that you were talking about.